Rose, Michael, Anthony, and others. Antoine in California, you're on the air for your questions for Dr. Edward Group. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Alex. How you doing?
Good, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking at allergic reactions to iodine, and it says some people have hypersensitivity to iodine, and I was wondering, because I'm allergic to shellfish, and that's in a lot of seafood, I was wondering if I had an allergic reaction to it, or do you know anything about if people can have an allergic reaction?
Well, I want him to answer that, but that's why we say consult your physician before taking it. We haven't gotten any reports of that. That we know of. We have a folder for each supplement if we do get reports, but we haven't gotten any reports with any of the products of allergic reaction. But is it iodine in fish that makes people have a reaction, or shellfish, Dr. Group?
That's a controversial subject. I believe, with working with thousands upon thousands of patients, that it's not the iodine that is causing the allergic reaction. It's actually other constituents in the shellfish. Now, with that being said, again, like Alex said, always consult with your healthcare practitioner. But there's a difference also in the different types of iodine that are out there. There's potassium iodide. I mean, iodine in itself, coming from the earth, is a toxic compound. What I recommend people do in that case, from the people that I've worked with, is you start off with just a drop, but make sure that you're using a good detoxified form of iodine, like the X2. You can start off with a drop on your skin, see if you have a reaction. You know, you might want to make sure that you're by a hospital or something like that. Yeah,
and you're not saying, consult your healthcare provider first, but that's what you do. First, you would just test it on the skin, then a little bit under the tongue.
Maybe one drop under the tongue. And personally, I haven't had anybody that's had a reaction. That's not to say, everybody's different. Everybody's biochemistry is different. That doesn't mean you might not have a reaction. But what I have seen is people that avoid shellfish are extremely deficient in iodine. And that's an issue that they start having other problems because they're told that iodine's a natural compound. I mean, it's very hard for the body to be allergic to something like that.
Explain the different types, though, and how ours is different.
Well, you have the raw iodine from the earth, and that's the crystalline form, which will outgas, and then you have the potassium iodide, and you have different types of iodine salts. And the difference is the processing that it goes through to make it into a usable form inside the body, so your body doesn't have to break it down and utilize it, and so it can utilize it properly.
Why does our iodine that you help secure and develop turn bright blue, electric blue, other iodines turn red or black? But then in the periodic table, in the books, true iodine is purple blue.
Right. Well, because we're the only one that's using the pure iodine crystals. We're not taking it from kelp, which is damaged by Fukushima and with all the radiation, so it's contaminated with all the plasticizers and everything else in seawater. Those other chemicals, when you take that from the kelp, which most people take the iodine from, you have a slew of other chemicals in there. And they're not processing.
We have the lab test. This iodine has nothing in it. It's completely clean.
I mean, this is about as clean as you can get. This is 99 point. When you buy iodine, you can buy 96%, 97%, 98.5, 98.8, USP, British Pharmacopoeia, and then you can get high grade iodine, which is the 99.9%. And that just means that if it's 99.6, you have a 0.4% contaminants in there. No one is going to clean that stuff out of there, and that might lead to some sort of reaction, and that's why some people with shellfish allergies that have taken over-the-counter iodine might have it.
We're going to jump to the next person. Thank you, Antoine. Hope that helps you out. Let's go ahead and talk to Rose in Illinois. You're on the air with Dr. Group. Go ahead, Rose.
Hi, I had a question for Dr. Group, and I also had a story about vaccine brainwash. So my question is, I've chronically had a blocked sinus since I can remember, and I went to the doctor, but the doctor didn't find anything. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. So for blocked sinuses, that could be a couple of different things. It could be that you're having an allergic reaction and maybe secreting extra mucus up in there. A lot of times, though, with chronic blocked sinuses, you have these ethmoid bones that move out of position, and there's actually a procedure where they'll insert a little balloon up into your sinuses and blow it up, and they'll readjust those bones. It's one of the best things. I can't remember what the procedure's called, but you could probably type in.
Joe Rogan's done it, and others. Have you especially say that again?
I believe it's called balloon sinuplasty.
Balloon
Okay, there you go.
sinuplasty. And Joe, they removed like a huge scar tissue growth. His voice changed. He quit snoring, breathed better. Some of the folks in the office have had it done. And they say if you've had your nose broken in car accidents or whatever, most people have that all smashed.
Yeah, it's an amazing procedure. We were doing some research probably 3 years ago or so on it and talking to some people, and they all had great success. And not only does it correct the sinuses, they notice increased memory from it.
Because there's pressure on the brain.
Less, you know, because usually when those bones move out of position, you also have the tendency to catch more flus and you're sick, and it's the neurological system in your face gets a little bit messed
Sure.
up.
So, ma'am, what specifically was your question, Rose?
Yeah, so my question was what to do about that. However, I do know someone who had a balloon sinuplasty, and they had a horrible experience, and it didn't help.
Well, sure. We've just heard positive, and those are medical doctors. You know, we're not selling that. It's just that the folks I know that have done it really, really liked it. But I'm sorry they had a horrible experience. What was your vaccine story?
Oh, so I was speaking to a friend the other day, and I was trying to inform her about the MMR vaccine, about some of the data that came out about it, and how Dr. Andrew Wakefield's partner was exonerated. And
Yes.
she told me that even if vaccines were linked to autism, she would rather her child have autism than get the measles.
Which hasn't killed one person in 20 years in the United States. So as this person said, I'd rather my daughter or my child or son have autism and be in diapers when they're 30 than get some red spots on them and a fever for one day.
I mean, you know, that's just the uneducation of people out there. It doesn't take long when I tell people, listen, don't believe me. Go do your own research. I mean, you can type in vaccine danger and pull up a massive list of documented scientific facts. For that matter, you can go to the CDC and website, and it talks about the dangers of the ingredients.
But then they go on the news and say never hurt anybody, there's no side effects. They have a secret court that covered it up. What did you say to this person when they said this to you?
I was just in shock, and I said, you know, the measles isn't really a deadly disease for young children. And she said, no, I'd still rather my child have autism.
Yeah, well, that's a person that submits to the system so much that it's their God. And if they told her to sacrifice her child to Moloch, she might do it. Thank you for the call. There's always been people like that throughout history. You had one of your patients or friends or something call you with a story last week, and I think we have their number. So we're going to call them. A pretty interesting story about medical tyranny. So let's get that person on the line. We'll introduce them next after we've talked to Zach in North Carolina. Zach, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? I originally wanted to call in and ask about like tooth fillings with the mercury amalgam and the BPA, and what are some good alternatives. Sure. But actually, it's funny that y'all started talking before the break about all this anxiety and stuff going on. And
yeah, because I'm somebody that doesn't have anxiety when there's riot police in New York beating people in front of me and I go to jail. I mean, I don't sit around having anxiety. And when I start having anxiety, you better believe something's about to happen.
Yeah, my buddy sent me a text over the weekend, and he was like, look up September 23rd, 2015 prophecies. And, man, I did, and, I didn't get freaked, worried about Y2K or 2012 or anything, but, with this Jade Helm stuff going on, it's just, I looked at, like, the first video on YouTube about that date, and I've read a few more things about it, and it's just, I don't know, have you heard about, some video out there, it's like some French minister with John Kerry said we have 500 days to avoid climate chaos, and that was like, exactly till September 23rd. They got the CERN stuff in Switzerland and Jade Helm going on.
Well, I've always said they can launch, because Secretary of Defense Cohen said they have weather weapons and tectonic weapons. They're partially declassified. They could launch weather weapons, say is from global warming, to pass the global carbon tax, and out of that global crisis build their world government.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been sent multiple videos about September 23rd and September 24th, about anything from the rapture to meteors. It's very interesting stuff, actually. I was looking at some of the videos on there, and there's people that have actually broken it down with biblical...
but I'll say this. In my experience, when I have sixth sense before, it doesn't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm very suspect of people who have absolute specifics, and then they say, oh, we said this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. All I know is I'm sitting around restaurants, the gym, wherever, in the office, and somebody's like, yeah, my uncle's real freaked out, never has been. He thinks something big's about to happen. And, another guy comes in and goes, man, I've been having these really bad dreams. I've known this guy for 10 years, Weldon. He said something big's going to happen. I mean, you walked in saying it today. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, I was just telling Alex, this is something, I think something's going to happen probably within the next 3 weeks or so is kind of what I'm feeling. That might change. I don't know. But I also said, from now until to the end of the first week of October is something might happen again. But yeah, regarding your dental,
it could just be earth changes though, because we have these magnetic cells in our brain that pick up magnetic lines. They've proven that. And
maybe it's something good that's going to happen. I mean, who knows?
But the Earth tectonically is moving a lot. There's earthquakes all over the world now, including in the middle of the U.S. So we're picking that up. It's just our brain picks it up, and then but it's like a sensor. We don't know why we're getting upset.
Well, somebody said they drew a straight line from the volcano that went off in Chile exactly to the place where the earthquake was in Nepal. Did you hear about that?
I did. Yeah, I saw the map of
something like that. I mean, who knows what's going to be.
Thank you so much, Zach. Let's talk to, I think your friend, who is this a listener or a patient?
Actually, you guys are sponsoring him. He's been a longtime InfoWars fan, and he just called me for some health advice lately, and I was in shock with his story. And basically, you told him what to do. So his name is Telly Blackwood. He was a wrestler. And,
I know him. By us sponsoring him, I didn't even know who you were getting on. He's a famous actor and also a famous wrestler. And then he also got his video banned for criticizing Michael Moore, but it got restored when it had like 4 or 5 million views, whatever it was. And so he went through a medical attorney, so I know who this is.
Yeah.
And by sponsor, he says he loves the products, but he hasn't become a spokesman yet for them. He has lost a bunch of weight. So Telly Blackwood is on with us. He's been able to call in. I just knew you had somebody with a testimony. Tell us about the medical tyranny, sir.
Oh, medical tyranny. Here we go. Well, last Thursday, well, not by decision, I came down with tonsillitis and strep throat, luckily. And I went to the hospital, and they did the test, did the swab, and they're like, well, we need to remove these as soon as possible. I'm like, well, why? I mean, why you got to remove them for? It's just, there's no way we can take care of this. And they almost didn't let me leave. And they're all, well, you can't leave. We need to get you into surgery right away because it was swollen to the point where I can even swallow liquid. And so he ain't forcing me to do anything, for one. There ain't enough people there to do that. So signed my little name in the form of a happy face and left the hospital. And I got home, I called up Dr. Group. I'm like, help me, what can I do? I don't want to lose my tonsils. I've been pharmaceutical-free for 4 months since I started this whole weight loss adventure with everything. I want to keep it that way. And he had me go ahead and mix some of the silver bullet in with the lung cleanse. So I started doing, spraying and getting my lungs with that. And I also started taking nascent iodine. I started doing the drops back in the throat, grabbing with water and salt, and sometimes just taking it straight and falling into the water. And my tonsils in 24 hours were not swollen anymore. And within 48 hours, which was probably around late Friday, early Saturday, I felt normal. A little raspy now. I was at the motocross, Kingtown motocross, screaming my lungs out the day before yesterday, so my voice is pretty much gone.
Well, the same thing has happened to me, and I didn't even know we were doing this today. I just heard it was a medical tyranny story, and because the guy called in, I didn't get the name, but last year, chest cold killed my uncle, killed my great-uncle, killed my cousin. It was a mystery illness all over Texas and other areas. Wasn't getting any media attention, but a few local newspapers. I couldn't shake it. My dad couldn't shake it. I took antibiotics, and I thought, why don't I take a colloidal silver? Antibiotics, 2 rounds didn't work for my dad or me. We did take large amounts of colloidal silver. I talked to a doctor before we did this. I took like basically a bottle every 2 days. Took about 2 bottles, knocked it completely out. And again, it is toxic to the bacteria and viruses, folks. But we're not saying use a consult a physician. But I know the other stuff wasn't working, and this stuff was so killer, it wiped out 3 people in my family. And my dad was sick for a month till I made him drink all the silver. So undoubtedly, Silver Bullet at InfoWarsLife.com, that's what I was taking, absolutely had an amazing effect for me. And even hospitals now are using silver for disinfectants. Thank you so much, Kelly. It was good to hear from you, Telly. I want to get him on as a full guest and talk about what the products have done. I mean, I've seen him lose all the weight. He's said he wants to come on and talk about it, so we'll get him on the nightly news or the radio show soon and then kind of show some of the videos he's produced, some of the work he's done. But before we go to break and come back with Michael in Canada and Anthony in New York and others. Let's do a little plugging because it's what funds the operation.